And we are live. Welcome to greeneconomy.tv. I'm your host and facilitator, Byron McDonald. Today, we will be going in conversation with Tom Quinn, Head of Content at the Mining Indaba. He will be going in conversation with Green Economy Journal publisher, Gordon Brown. But before I go ahead, as I say at each show, greeneconomy.tv provides insights and intelligence on all sustainability related matters. Very inviting advert. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that so much. How have you guys been doing? Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Byron. Yeah, we have a great team here and out in South Africa who help us put those together. I'm always really impressed when I see them, even though I've seen them a few times.
Yeah, hi Byron. Nice to see you, and hi Tom, and welcome to the show from my side. Thank you.
So to get the show started, I'm going to hand it over to Gordon. Gordon's going to have all the relative questions. So guys, enjoy. I'll be listening.
Yeah, thank you, Byron, and what a pleasure, and great to chat with you, Tom. I mean, our little business in South Africa, Green Economy Journal, has been a long-standing media partner of Mining Indaba. We have a great regard for the event, certainly one of the biggest events taking place annually in South Africa in the business-to-business field, and certainly, I think without a doubt, well, arguably, let's say this, that it is one of the most important meetings for the mining industry every year, and it's great to have it here in Cape Town. But of course, this year is different from other years. We've obviously had the COVID pandemic. We're now sitting in the second peak. We've got many industries that have been radically affected. One thinks of aviation, one thinks of tourism, but not everyone considers the disruption that's been caused to the event industry, which I know from painful experience has been stark, and I know that's true for you. So I'm very keen to understand exactly how you're responding to this. How is Mining Indaba? I understand Mining Indaba will be a virtual event for the first time ever. I know that many different companies have tried this, some with great success, others with less success. Very keen to understand and to hear with great anticipation what exactly you guys have in mind in terms of structure. So perhaps I can hand over to you and ask you just to talk through your experience, some of the conversations you've had, some of the innovations that you've brought through, and just give us a sense of how this event will be structured.
Certainly, and yeah, very good question, Gordon. It's undoubtedly been a hugely challenging year for all types of different industries, particularly anyone who's customer facing, like ourselves at Hive Group. We're one of the world's largest conference and exhibition companies. As such, this is our day-to-day business: is getting people together in one location. Giving them thought leadership, content, networking experiences, and of course, all that came to a halt very suddenly at the beginning of last year. Once it was known that the pandemic was extremely serious, and so we had to adapt very quickly. As I know that we've spoken about just before this. We had plans in the pipeline of doing digital content, making sure that the Indaba audience had a kind of a 365 touch point with us throughout the year. So it wasn't just everything leading up to one big event in February and then everything goes quiet. So we were starting to do things in terms of our digital content and keeping those touch points with the Indaba audience. But like any company in the media and in our position, all that was very accelerated once the pandemic hit. And so as an organization, we formed a central task force, what is now known as the Omnichannel Task Force, within the company, to really get to grips with the digital environment, put together best practices, what works and what doesn't, very importantly. And I think for all of us, one of the things that we've had to grapple with throughout this year is this the slight fatigue caused by lots and lots of online webinars and things like that. Some absolutely excellent, some not so great, as you say. So we took the decision very early on at Mining Indaba to do, of course, online webinars and digital content that way, but to be very, very selective about what we put out. So, for example, in terms of the volume of what we were giving the audience, we went out about every 6 weeks with a webinar instead of on a weekly basis, because we wanted to make sure that people look forward to it. They put it in their calendar and they want to join us, and don't get too fatigued by us putting out too much. And we also wanted to concentrate on the key issues going on in the industry right now. So we do miss being in Cape Town, particularly here in London, where it's the middle of our winter. All the team were looking forward to coming to sunny Cape Town. And, you know, Indaba provides a huge boost for the local economy. Obviously, the deals that get done at Indaba are a huge boost for the national economy, not just of South Africa, but of many African countries. But I think we've put together something very special for next week at Mining Indaba Virtual, which will give the global audience a real taste of what Mining Indaba is all about, if they haven't actually experienced it for themselves.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and I want to come back and speak to you in some detail about who's going to be speaking and what people can expect and why they should tune in. But just to carry on with this conversation very briefly about the changes and the innovations that you've brought through, and you raise a good point there. So, actually, when the lockdown started, I felt that there were a whole bunch of new arrivals in the event scene, almost. So everybody coming through with a webinar, etc. But at the end of the day, you know, obviously the brands have value. I mean, brands, that's what the whole idea of a brand is. And I guess that people want to hear from the established brands. The people that trust the content that those brands are putting out is valuable. But of course, and as you say, I mean, a necessity is the mother of invention. We all speak at our events and in our media channels about the fourth industrial revolution and all these wonderful ideas, and we talk about technology a lot, but we don't always get to it. And as you've pointed out, you know, you've been forced to now implement. And one of the things that, and I think that I'll be very curious when in the next week to just see exactly how your technology works, and I've got no doubt. And perhaps we can touch on that. You were talking about your international studio and how it's all outsourced, and you've got this professional team working on a high production value. But perhaps in answering this next question, you also speak to that point, which is, and this question is, you know, one of the things that people lament. So my point was, there's many good things about virtual events. You know, super convenient. You tune in from your living room or your office or whatever. Low cost, in your case, free to attend. I mean, who'd have thought you could attend Indaba for free? Such a high value event. These are great things. Virtual tricks and experiences and so forth. But one of the things that people do lament is this lack of personal contact, you know, the networking, the handshaking. And you mentioned the deals that go down in the back alleys and in the chambers of Mining Indaba, and that stuff's legendary, you know. What are you doing? How's your show, how's your virtual experience seeking to endeavor to at least bring people together, perhaps even in a virtual way, but have an ability to sort of reach out to each other and connect personally?
Yeah, and it's absolutely vital to I guess the platform of Indaba, the business model of Indaba, and look, nothing is going to replace face-to-face contact. It's a very human thing to do. It engenders a lot of trust, and a lot of commerce and opportunities are generated off the back of meeting face to face. I remember when 9/11 happened in New York, and there was a lot of panic, and people saying this is going to revolutionize travel. People aren't going to want to travel anymore, and things like that. And those were all very valid points at the time. What actually happened is that people were more selective about where they went, and actually using as well a hybrid digital platform, which was then in its very early stages. People found ways of meeting and reacting to the environment that they found themselves in. And I think that's true of what's happened in this past year as well. Indaba is all about meeting people. We're not going to replace that model, and hopefully with the vaccine rollout, things will get back to, I hesitate to say normal, because people are using the term the new normal increasingly now, but they'll get back to what you would expect from Indaba over the next few months. What we've got planned in the short term is, for example, on the networking side, at the end of March, we're catering to our very important investor audience. This is the global audience, not just African investors, but people from Asia, North America, and Europe in particular. We're putting together an investor day, which is online, which has a matchmaking and meeting facility built into it. And the investor relations team here at Indaba are doing a lot of work right now behind the scenes to ensure those best fits between, junior mining companies with new projects, and very influential investors from Wall Street to Australia to Beijing and London. So that's coming up right at the end of March. Next week is very content focused, so it's very much about giving people the Indaba main stage experience that they would expect in Cape Town. The platform we're using has a lot of interactivity, a lot of engagement functions. So there's of course the chat box, Q&A. People can ask questions in real time of the speakers, and as you say, we're feeding all this through a professional permanent TV studio here in central London, which we're operating with our contractors under very strict COVID conditions, so everyone is kept safe throughout the experience. But it means that hopefully we're not subject to any tech glitches, which of course all of us have experienced on various webinars throughout the year. But just, I think the main thrust is to keep the audience engaged and to say, look, it's been a disruptive year, but Indaba isn't going anywhere. And we're actually responding to the situation we found ourselves in. And I think that the fact that we have 4 heads of state who are wanting to be involved in a virtual event at Indaba next week is testament to the strong brand that we have, and the faith that we've built up over almost 3 decades of operating Indaba, that this is the preeminent deal platform for the global mining community who are looking at projects in Africa. So it's, I guess, to sum it up, it's not ideal, but we are an innovative organization. We're looking at how the mining community responds, and there's a lot that's going to be talked about next week in our 4th Industrial Revolution Tech session on how the mining community has applied technology to keep the workforce safe and to keep operations going. And we're learning a lot, I guess, from each other in terms of what works and what doesn't. And we've put together a stellar program which will it will be engaging and as a springboard to more hybrid events down the line.
Yeah, I mean, and this is right. I mean, what you'll also be demonstrating is an approach that, you know, maybe even big mining companies might adopt, where, you know, they've got head offices in multiple countries, they've got mining operations in multiple countries. So in many ways, this move to a digital engagement is actually highly suitable to the operation of businesses that have complex operations across multiple sites and cities. So just sticking on this topic just for a moment, because I do want to get to the actual gravamen in a moment. But you know, so talking about this innovation and technology and moving events forward, like you mentioned, there were things that were in the pipeline anyway. And one of the benefits of a virtual event, and we discussed this briefly off air, was that now that it's free, you've got this mass potential really to bring this massive audience to the event. I mean, it's always been a big audience, a significant audience, a critical mass audience of key stakeholders. But now,
yeah,
you have this ability to really make it much wider, broader. Talk to us about just some of the things you think, some of the innovations that you've had to put in. Are there perhaps some of those that you think will become part of Mining Indaba into the future?
Absolutely, and a great question. I think anyone who works in this type of media, of bringing thought leadership and industry updates to a wide audience is looking very closely at the innovation that's happening right now. I see this. I'm hugely excited by what we're going to achieve with virtual next week. Already looking at the registration numbers and looking at the data, particularly from those registrations, we can see we've got about 80 countries registered and represented as part of our delegate audience, which is phenomenal when you consider it's Indaba is very much a Pan-African investment event, but as I say, with this global audience, and I think as we've put in increasingly more content on digital applications and the fourth industrial revolution, how that relates to mining, we're having a more diverse scope of audience joining us. So it's not just the mining operators anymore. For example, on the panel session on 4IR, we've got the CEO of Siemens for Southern Africa, who will be talking about Siemens' journey and response, particularly in a mining context during this pandemic. We have automotive manufacturers who are increasingly more interested in what we get up to at Indaba and who's involved, because the boon in battery metals and the opportunities for Africa within the energy transition is absolutely vital. So we've got the Teslas and the Fords and the GMs of this world looking very closely at what we're doing at Indaba because of security of supply of cobalt, copper, rhodium. If you see the rhodium price in the last few months has skyrocketed, rare earths, because of this opportunity for mining to play an absolutely pivotal role in the energy transition and battery metals. So we've got a number of ways in which we can interact with the audience. I'm particularly delighted that we're getting a lot more younger members of our audience registering. As you mentioned, it's free of charge. We wanted to give back to the Indaba audience and to use this opportunity to bring in next generation leaders. So students from across Africa are able to register and tune in, recent graduates, and then in the wider global community, we're seeing a lot of the young leaders who are signing up, and it's a way to bring them Indaba without the obviously the challenges of cost of getting all the way to Cape Town, hotel and travel and that kind of thing, to give them that Indaba experience and to explain what we're all about. So yeah, we're wanting to use some of these sessions in order to reach out and really engage and involve the audience through the chat box, through follow-ups, through downloads of reports. Deloitte are bringing out their Tracking the Trends next week, which will be available to download whilst Deloitte are speaking in their panel discussion. So there's a number of ways in which we can pull this digital generation in to show them what the future of mining is all about, and do that in a sustainable way, which I know is very important to your audience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's a win-win at the end of the day, because you're getting these junior guys in firms or people in smaller firms and consultancies that perhaps wouldn't have had the resources to attend, being able to access the content. At the same time, you're introducing these potential future delegates to the type of content that you're offering. So there's definitely a win-win in that regard. So thanks for beginning to talk about the content, because I'd like to switch to that. I understand that you've created a new editorial board. Perhaps talk to us a little bit about that. Why did you create a new editorial board? How will that influence the content? You've spoken about a greater breadth of content with all these new opportunities arising, but also perhaps just chat to us about the tweaks to the format. A digital event is not exactly the same. You can't just, put a really top guy up on stage and let him speak for an hour. Those days, this platform engages slightly differently. So perhaps, tell us about your board. Tell us about, give us a deeper understanding of what delegates can expect to find.
Sure, and I'm personally very excited about building this advisory board, not least from a content perspective, because it gives me direct engagement with all the key stakeholders in the mining value chain, not just the operators, but the tech companies, the finance guys, the sustainability experts, and people like this. So when I arrived at Mining Indaba and joined the team, I was very excited about the potential for the industry and what we could build. And there was the established advisory board of 3 really key people to Indaba. We have our chair, Mpo Makwana, who has just become interim chair of Nedbank, and is very engaged with the financial community in South Africa and beyond. Nolatundo Gosa, who was one of the founding members of the charter in South Africa from many years ago, the National Development Plan, and she is a formidable lady who's built a business spanning different industries in South Africa, and has fantastic contacts and engagement with the South African government. And then, very importantly, Frans Belaney, who is a very renowned, hugely respected figure in South African mining, as a former head of the Miners' Union, and knows Minister Mantashe well, and President Ramaphosa from many years ago. And we had this established board who had been steering Indaba and helping it develop. And we were tasked by the CEO of our own organization, not to revolutionize the board, but to complement it with people who could feed into the content from their own expertise and their own industry perspectives. So I've put together several different committees, which each have a discipline, whether it be the CEO committee, the Mining Operations Committee, the Sustainability Committee, and they will all feed in. They're all made up of leaders in their respective fields. They will feed into some of the content decisions that we make in the future of Indaba. And it's really important to have a distinct sustainability committee in there, because everyone from Mark Cutafani at Anglo and Bold Batar at Rio, to right down to the junior miners just starting out and getting that seed capital. They all have to take a very serious interest in ESG principles and building a framework. Social license to operate is the number one risk factor within mining, and has been for some time now. And we all know in the industry about some of the missteps that Rio Tinto made recently, which forced the group CEO to resign because of the mistakes that they'd made in Australia with the Aboriginal communities. And Bold Batar, who will be speaking next week, the CEO of Minerals and Energy for Rio Tinto, is very upfront about that. In my conversation with him this week on Tuesday during rehearsal, he wants to speak to this and to acknowledge what's happened and to put forward exactly the steps they've taken based on this and the ESG framework that they're building at Rio Tinto to ensure that these things won't happen again. So the board will help in terms of giving us real-time perspectives of what's happening with African mining on the ground, and particularly in this ESG context, how mining companies can engage with communities via the Indaba platform.
Yeah, it's great to hear, and I mean that really just segues straight into my next question. Really, is to say, Mining Indaba, and from us as a media company in South Africa looking in from the outside, we've always been, super impressed by the fact that this topic for many years now has been brought through and has been developing inside Mining Indaba. And if I understand correctly, that's developed into its own sub-conference and its own event within Mining Indaba, which is fantastic. So you've given us some insight there about what delegates can expect under this topic. You've touched on the social challenges and social sustainability, which is key. And I mean, we all know we've had still licking our wounds from the Marikana episode and the challenges that the mining companies have with the communities around them, and that form as a consequence of them, challenges of dealing with the municipalities and so forth. But I'm also interested in to what extent will you be covering, you mentioned operations as a separate topic, but we also know that sustainability and green economy cannot be separated from operations. We're talking about energy and emissions. We're talking about water and the old topic of acid mine drainage and the use of water. Also, mines being a source of water. You're talking about waste and toxic waste, which is linked to the water issue. Restoration, environmental impact. There really are so many operational points. You mentioned Rio Tinto. We know that Rio Tinto is about to roll out a significant renewable energy bid. In fact, they've already rolled it out, so before long they'll be putting massive renewable energy projects down on the ground, and they're not the first. There are many other companies, mining companies, that have done that. To what extent will you be looking into these operational realities around sustainability as a key topic?
Yeah, it's really important because as we've seen over the past year to 2 years, ESG as a phrase, as a buzzword or a buzz phrase, has come into the vernacular of mining, and like all of the buzzwords, it carries the risk of losing its meaning, and people kind of, they might roll their eyes and go, yeah, you've mentioned ESG. It's really important for us to see what that means in practical terms. So not just box ticking on an annual report. The Indaba community want to know how you roll out a tangible, real ESG framework in your operations. What does that look like? What does it mean to the community in which you're operating? So as the head of content, I'm really really focused on making sure that this just isn't an esoteric kind of topic that we throw onto the agenda. It has real value and meaning, and people can share what they've been doing to sort of cross-pollinate those ideas of how are we making this operation sustainable? How are we bringing in renewable energy? One of our main speakers across Indabas is the ICMM, and they've recently released the tailings report and the recommendations that they have for their members. We want to engage people like the ICMM and the EITI. Badi Balde, the director for Africa of the EITI, is one of our speakers next week as well, to make sure that mining companies are actively engaged with the bodies that can help them implement real ESG into their operations. And you're right, you picked up on the fact that we have a sustainability day at Indaba, which began a few years ago as a kind of half day towards the end of Indaba. It's now right in the middle of Indaba. It's all day on the Tuesday of Indaba, and it attracts CEOs of the major operators, the Archbishop of Cape Town. I know from here in London, the Church of England and the quite powerful investment body that they have fly all the way over to Cape Town to take part in this, because they see the value of this as a voice for ethical investing and the communities they represent. So next week, you'll hear an opening panel discussion involving Mark Kutafani, Bold Batar, Standard Bank, Lord Charles Vivian from Tavistock, who represent a number of mining operators and are very key about explaining to communities exactly how ESG is working in their operations. So we have a number of people from across the mining value chain be able to weigh in with that actual real experiences of what they've been doing so far and what they want to roll out in the future. We also have on the second day next week, on the Wednesday, a session devoted to decarbonisation and the role that platinum group metals and battery metals can take in that. I'm delighted to say that Natasha Vilhone, the CEO of Anglo Platinum, will take part in that, as well as Steve Perry from RB Plat. Steve is one of the flag bearers for the Minerals Council of South Africa as well. So it's a very powerful session with a huge amount to talk about in terms of the role that specific battery metals and minerals can take in the energy transition and decarbonizing not just the mining industry, but all other energy intensive industries as well. So sustainability is very much within the DNA of Mining Indaba. Personally, as head of content, I want to make it not just stay that way, but to develop the way that we engage with communities. And myself and my colleague Simon Ford, who's the portfolio director, one of the most memorable aspects of last February's Indaba was going outside the CTICC to meet with Alternative Mining Indaba and those community leaders, and really listening to what their concerns are and what they would like to see happening within the mining community. So it's in terms of the future of what we are platforming at Indaba, sustainability is absolutely at the center of what we're doing.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Tom. I certainly look forward to participating. And I've got one more question for you. But before I give you that question, whereafter we'll hand back to Byron, I just want to wish you every success in your last week of wrapping it up, and obviously during the event itself. May it go swimmingly, and may you have the biggest audience you've ever had. And we wish you all the very best. Just as a final question to you, If there were people listening to the show right now who were just wondering whether they should attend, perhaps these are delegates from the past, or even people that are not familiar with the event and thinking of joining in, thinking of tuning in, what's your message to them just at this late stage of saying, hey, come guys, this is a great event, get involved? Over to you. Thank you.
So yeah, it's we do have a large audience that come into Cape Town each year, but the digital offering has given us the opportunity to really open the doors to a much wider audience who might not be able to travel, or are usually otherwise engaged at the time that Indaba is going on. One very important factor is that it's free of charge, so you can go to our miningindaba.com website and register for free. We took that decision. It was really very easy decision to take because we wanted to show to a wider audience, and perhaps those people you're talking about who might be on the fence, what exactly Indaba is about and how mining really touches the lives of all of us in terms of the obvious example that we talked about, the energy transition and the digital revolution. Our phones, our laptops, our electric cars, our batteries wouldn't work without the mining industry. So it's really incumbent upon the mining industry to take that leadership role. And what we hope to do by opening up Indaba online next week is to show people from various different industries what we're all about, and particularly the young leaders. So this is an opportunity for them, free of charge, to register, to learn from some of the vast array of expertise that we'll have over the 2 days, to listen to 4 heads of state from President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa, the President of the DRC, of Botswana, and of Sierra Leone, to see what those particular countries are doing in terms of the mining and investment opportunities that they have for their young generation who are coming up and who are going to be the next leaders of the industry. So it's, you have nothing to lose by registering and seeing what we do at Indaba, and everything to gain in terms of how mining affects so many other industries and walks of life, rather than solely the mining community that is one of our fundamental audiences. So please do go to the website and register now if you haven't already.
What a pleasure, Tom. Thank you. Byron, over to you.
Thanks, Gordon.
I said that was so informative again, and I like these chats. It's just helping during this time also, especially with what you just said now with the virtual event and those who can't afford it. But gents, thank you so much. We've reached our time, and thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, like we say each week, greeneconomy.tv provides insights and intelligence on all sustainability related matters. So go and sign up on the Indaba website. You can find it in the link. We will load it later onto the link. Go and register. It's free of charge, as you said. Hopefully it's free of charge. It is, man. So go and sign up. You can connect with other people. And this is your opportunity. Look at it as an opportunity to connect with different B2B guys also. If you never had an opportunity to fly or connect or have an excuse that you can't reach these or network with other people, here's your opportunity. Mining Indaba is giving you the opportunity to grow. So, see you. Bye.